Hello everybody. So today we're going to start on D2, which is where we're going to get into the actual tools that we're going to be using to solve problems in this unit. D2, the first part of the lesson or of this outcome involves investments where there are regular payments. So for example, even if you just get a constant paycheck, you get paid like every 2 weeks or whatever. So you're getting regular payments that are being put into your bank account. And the more payments that you get put into it, the more interest you're going to earn in your bank account. That's also the same thing for any kind of investing that you do. So we're going to take a look at the tool that we're going to use. We're going to look at how we can approach problems like this. So far we've looked at one-time investments. So when we do compound interest, it's just we're taking a lump sum of money, we're putting it into an account, and it's going to be compounding. But that's not often the case because often we're just making regular contributions to something. Again, whether it's just putting money into a bank account or through an investment. Now, in the notes here that I have, it talks about using the TI-83. We are going to be using an online financial calculator instead, but the values that we're going to be using on there are still going to be the same. So these are the 7 things that we're going to be looking for. And when we solve a problem involving investments, 6 of these numbers are going to be filled, and then we are going to need to solve for whatever the 7th thing is. So first we have N, which is the total number of payments. And what this is, and we'll kind of get into it, but I'll write it down here. This is the number of years times PY, and PY is one of my values here. So we'll talk about that in a bit. I is my interest rate, and you just put it in. You don't have to change it to a decimal or anything. PV is your present value. PMT is your regular payments that you're making. And I'm going to make a strong note here, which says your payment number is always going to be a negative number when we put it on the calculator. Future value is just how much money you will have in the future. PY is the number of payments per year. So if you're making monthly payments, PY is going to be 12. If you're just making 2 payments, it's going to be 2. But that's going to be up to you to kind of figure out. And CY is the number of compounding periods per year. And we talked about compounding periods in the previous lesson. So those are those N numbers. So like annually is 1, semi-annually is 2, quarterly is 4, and so on and so on and so on. Okay, so we're going to be entering these values in. Now, why is PMT negative? We make our numbers negative if you are giving money, if you're putting money into something. Okay, so you are giving money or putting it into something. So like you're putting it into an investment or a bank account. Okay, so your payment numbers are always going to be negative because you're always giving that money. You're always putting it somewhere. Your future value is always going to be a positive value because you're getting that money back. You're not giving away the future value. That's the money that you're getting at the end of whatever the period is. And then we're going to also talk about present value. That could also be a positive or a negative value. So example number 1 says, you decide to invest $250 in a bank that offers an interest rate of 6.25% compounded semi-annually. What will your money be worth in 5 years if the interest rate remains unchanged? Okay, so let's start filling in this table here with the values. So we're putting away $250 a month. So these are my regular payments, and that's going to be a negative number. So that's going to be minus $250. We want to find out what the future value will be in 5 years. So I'm going to just put a question mark there. How many payments are we making in a year? Well, we're making monthly payments, so we're making 12 payments in a year. It's compounded semi-annually, so that number is 2. Again, you can refer to the previous lesson to figure out why that's 2. My interest rate is 6.25%, so on my financial calculator, I just have to put 6.25. My present value, so how much money am I starting with? Well, I don't have a starting amount in the question, so my present value is just going to be 0. And then my N number is going to be the number of payments times the number of years. So we have 12 payments over 5 years, So when we do 12 times 5, we get 60. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to the financial calculator that I'm using in my class, but again, you might be using a different one in your class. So let's just flip over here. And so this is what the financial calculator looks like. On the top here, you want to click on the tab of whatever it is that you're solving. So in this case, we're solving for future value, so we're going to leave that tab clicked. But if we wanted to solve for the payments, we would click on that tab. If we want to solve for the interest rate, we could click on that tab, and so on and so on and so on. So like I said, we're looking for the future value. So I'm going to enter in my values. So N is 60, interest rate 6.25, present value is 0. We're making monthly payments of $250, and again, we want that to be a negative number. And then when you click on the settings, that's where you get your PY and CY numbers. So in this case, I'm making 12 payments per year, and it's compounded semi-annually. So it's compounded twice, and then you just click calculate. And we get a future value of $17,518.99. So I'm going to go ahead and write that down, and then I'm going to switch back to the notes and just point out a couple of things for when you answer these questions. So I've got my answer written here. Don't forget, because we're talking about money, always include a $sign. You'll lose half a mark if you don't include it. Money is always written to 2 decimal places, so the financial calculator will give you the answer to 2 decimal places, so you don't really have to worry too much about that. Other than that, when you write your answer on a quiz or a test or on the provincial exam, you have to indicate all of the values that you entered into the financial calculator. So you have to say N equals 60, I equals 6.25, PV equals 0, and so on and so on and so on. Like, you have to show your work, otherwise you do not get credit for it. There are quite a few examples here, so let's jump right into example number 2, which says, using the TVM solver, compare these 2 investments here over a 2-year period. In each case, determine the future value and which option is the better choice. So for both of them, they offer a 10% interest rate, compounded monthly. The first one, we invest $2,400 at the beginning of each year. And for option number 2, we're investing $200 at the beginning of each month. So I'm going to pause the video here. I'm going to fill in the tables. You can compare your answers afterwards, and then we'll take a look at the financial calculator after that. So I've got both of mine filled in here. And just one thing that I want to note is that it does say that they're putting it in at the beginning of each period, so there is a way to change that setting on the financial calculator. But I'm going to flip over here and let's see what we get. So we're solving for the future value. I'm going to start with option 1 first. So there are 2 years and there's only 1 payment per year, so N is just 2. The present value is 0. We're making yearly payments of $2,400. We're making 1 payment per year, and it's compounded monthly. We can also change when the payment is made, like I said, so these ones are made at the beginning. So when we click on calculate, we get a future value of $5,580.25. Now let's go ahead and do option 2. So option 2, we're making 24 payments, 10% interest rate, and these are monthly payments of $200. So that's going to be minus 200. We're making 12 of them in a year, and we are compounding monthly as well. So when we hit calculate on that, we get $5,333.46. So just flipping back to the notes here. So my option number 1, I ended up with about $200 more compared to option number 2, more like $250. So option 1 has higher future value, so it's a better choice. Right, and it kind of makes sense too, because remember that you are earning interest on whatever money that you put into the bank. So in this case, when we're putting $2,400 at the beginning, we're earning interest every month on that $2,400. Whereas here, when we're only putting $200 in, we're only earning interest on the $200 each time. So we're earning less interest, which is why the future value is just a little bit lower. Example number 3 says Adam made a $200 payment at the end of each year into an investment that earned 5% compounded annually, and Blake made a single investment at 5% compounded annually. At the end of 5 years, their future values were equal. So there are going to be different parts here, but part A, we're going to calculate Adam's future value. So again, I'm going to let you try to figure out what to fill in on the financial calculator, and then we'll take a look. So I've got my values filled in. There are 5 years. He's making 1 payment per year, so 5 payments. He's putting in $200 each time, interest rate 5%, starting value of 0, compounded annually. And he's making those payments at the end of each year. So again, we're calculating the future value. So let's go ahead and put them in here. 550 minus 200, 1, 1, making them at the end of the year. And when we calculate, we get $1,105.13. So now, if we flip over to the next page, it's asking how much did Blake invest 5 years ago? And there's a hint here that says he made payments of $0, but the number of payments is 5, so n is equal to 5. And I just realized I had my financial calculator open. So let's go ahead and figure out the principal amount. So now we're calculating the present value. And keep in mind it said at the question that their future values were equal at the end of the day. So because we calculated the future value in part A, this is going to be the same future value in part B. So again, take a moment, fill in the financial calculator numbers, and we'll check back in. So these are the values that I have. So n is 5, I is 5. We're solving for the present value. He didn't make any payments, so that's 0. The future value, which we calculated, was $1105.13. His payments per year is just 1, and his still compounded annually. So now on the financial calculator, we want to solve for present value. So I'm going to click on that tab, and we'll fill this out. So 5, interest rate is 5, payments are 0. Future value was $1105.13. He is making 1 payment per year compounded annually. When we click calculate, his present value was $865.90. So flip back over here one more time, and we can write down his present value here is $865.90. Now part C says who earned more interest. And so the way that we calculate interest is the interest is future value minus present value. So future value minus present value. Or you can think about it as the future value minus how much he invested. How much invested. So let's start with Blake because Blake is up here on our screen or on our page. So he earned $1105.13, or that was his final amount. He invested $865.90. So let's go ahead and do that calculation. So $1105.13 minus $865.90 is $239.23. Okay, so that's how much extra money he earned. Now, if we flip back to Adam, Adam made $200 payments and he made them 5 times to end up with a future value of $1105.13. So Adam, when we go to calculate his interest, it's $1105.13, but we don't subtract like a present value amount. What we're going to subtract instead is the $200 payments that he made, and he made 5 of them. Okay, so this is $1105.13 minus 1,000, which is $105.13. So at the end of the day, Blake earned more interest. All right, and writing this formula down here on how to calculate the interest might be a good idea to write on a cheat sheet, especially like the different kind of variations between the interest calculations. Example number 4, Jenny deposits $750 into an investment account at the end of every 3 months. Interest is compounded quarterly. The term is 3 years. The future value is blah, 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 blah. What is the interest rate? So now we're not giving you all of the different, all of the things that you need to fill out. So it's going to be up to you to write all of these different values down. All right, so she is investing $750 every 3 months. So that's my investment number. And remember, it's negative. We know the future value is 10,059.07. We're starting with a present value of 0. She's making payments every 3 months, so she is making 4 payments in a year, and it's compounded quarterly, so her compound number is 4. And my N number, remember, is my PY number times the number of years, so that's 4 times 3, or 12 total payments. So now we're going to go ahead and calculate the interest rate. So we'll flip back over here. We're solving for the interest rate. Fill in our table. So 12 payment periods, present value 0, making payments of $750. Don't forget the negative. Future value is 10,059.07. And both of these numbers are equal to 4. So when we calculate, we get an interest rate of 8%. Nice and round, but remember, when you are writing an answer on your provincial exam or whatever it might be, just make sure that you round to at least 2 decimal places, unless it's not applicable like it was here. Now we have 2 more examples here. The first one, example 5, says on Yule's 20th birthday, he started making regular $1,000 payments into an investment account at the end of every 6 months. He wants to save for a down payment on a house. His investment earns 3.5%, compounded semi-annually. At what age will he have more than $18,000? Okay, so he's making $1,000 payments, so negative 1,000. He's making the payments every 6 months, so he's making them twice a year. He wants to have a future value of 18,000. And he's starting with nothing. He's earning 3.5% interest, and it's compounded semi-annually. So in this case, we want to figure out our N number, but the question is not just asking that, it is also asking for the age. So we're going to solve for N in this case. Fill in our numbers, 3.5, present value 0, payments of $1,000, don't forget the negative. He wants to have 18,000 saved, which I don't know if that's going to be enough for a down payment for a house these days, but, you know, whatever. It is what it is. And when we hit calculate, we get N is equal to 15.784. Okay, so I have that number written down here. So N is equal to 15.784. But remember, this is not years. This is number of payments. Okay, so another thing to keep in mind, I'm going to write it up here, is N is equal to PY times years. Okay, so we know we just solved for our N number. We know that PY is equal to 2. So in this case, the number of years is going to be equal to N divided by my PY number. So in this case, it's going to be 15.784 divided by 2. So when we do this calculation, 15.784 divided by 2, you get 7.892. And so he started on his 20th birthday. It's going to take him 7.8 years, or 7.892 years. So that's age 27.892. So basically he's going to have more than 18,000 around 28 years old. Okay, so this question wasn't just about solving for the N number, but there was a little bit of extra work that we had to do to figure out the final answer. We have one final example here, which says Celia wants to have $300,000 in 20 years so that she can retire. So she has a trust account that earns 10.8% compounded annually. What amount of payments does she need to make each year to get her goal? So again, we're going to write down our 7 things. And I'm kind of running out of room here, so I'm going to write some of these on the side. And let's fill in our values. So she wants to have a future value of $300,000. We want to figure out the payments. She is making a 10.8% interest rate, compounded annually. And she wants to make payments once a year. So once a year, which means she's going to make 20 payments overall. And she's starting from nothing. She's starting from scratch. So my present value is equal to 0. So once again, we're going to flip over to the financial calculator and we are solving for the payment amount. So N is 20, interest rate is 10.8, present value 0, future value 300,000, and compounded annually, making 1 payment per year. So her payment amount, we get negative $4,781.09. So flipping back to the notes one more time, her payment amount is $4,781.09. How much interest will she earn in 20 years? So remember, my interest is my future value minus my present value. And my present value could also be, is payment amount times my N number, right? So N is my number of payments and P is my payment amount. So in this case, the interest is equal to 300,000 minus the 4,781.09 times 20, because she's making 20 of those payments. So you can do this all in one step, or if you want to do this calculation first, you can also do that. But just make sure that you are typing things into your calculator properly. So she earned $204,378, and my calculator says 0.2, but again, remember, we want to round money to 2 decimal places, so that's going to be 0.20. Okay, so if anything to take away from this lesson, make sure that you understand how to use the financial calculator first of all, but then also there will be questions that kind of take it a step further, such as asking about interest, or asking about like how old somebody is. So just kind of watch out for those variations.